The moment the news broke, it felt unreal around Baltimore for nearly 2 decades. The image of the Ravens on the sideline was inseparable from the presence of their head coach, a figure who became part of the city's football identity through stability, consistency, and an unmistakable sense of routine. When someone holds that position for 18 seasons, it stops feeling like a job title and starts feeling like a constant, almost permanent feature of the franchise. That is why the separation hit differently. It was not shock in the sense of chaos, but a strange awareness that something familiar had finally reached its natural endpoint. From a personal perspective, there is nothing about the relationship that suggests bitterness or resentment. Those who cross paths with him often speak about respect, professionalism, and genuine human moments that go beyond wins and losses. Even stories tied to family and opportunity underline that point. Moments where doors were opened not out of obligation, but out of belief in earning a chance. Those experiences matter, and they remain part of his legacy in Baltimore. Yet football is unforgiving when results stop aligning with expectations, especially when a roster is built to compete immediately. That is where the analytical side of the conversation takes over. The Ravens are not a team in transition or reconstruction. They are firmly positioned in a win-now window, with elite talent and a franchise quarterback in his prime. When a season begins with a 1-5 record, the margin for error disappears quickly. From that point on, every week feels like climbing uphill, and the pressure only intensifies. Ownership made it clear that patience had limits, and the expectation was not simply to contend, but to break through when it mattered most. Over the years, the pattern became difficult to ignore. Strong regular seasons followed by postseason frustration, fourth quarter collapses in critical moments, and missed opportunities that linger long after the final whistle. Not all of that falls on the head coach. But when the same story repeats itself, change becomes inevitable. In today's league, reaching even 10 seasons with one organization is rare. 18 years is almost unheard of. That length alone speaks to how much trust and stability existed. But it also highlights why the ending feels so significant. Now the franchise stands at the beginning of a new chapter, and it started immediately. The search for the next leader began almost as soon as the decision was made, signaling urgency rather than hesitation. Among the early names connected to the process is a familiar face, someone with deep roots in the Ravens organization, both as a former player and as a coach. His understanding of the culture, the city, and what it means to wear that uniform gives him a level of credibility from the start. His recent experience as a defensive coordinator elsewhere brings a mixed statistical resume, but context matters. Some seasons showed strong defensive efficiency. Others reflected broader team inconsistencies that extended beyond scheme alone. What consistently stands out is his reputation as a player's coach, someone who connects with the locker room, brings energy to the field, and demands accountability without losing the trust of those around him. That balance is not easy to find, and it is often what separates good coordinators from potential head coaches. Continuity has always been a guiding principle for this franchise. Ownership has long admired organizations that value stability over constant turnover, avoiding the endless cycle of hiring and firing that plagues so many teams. The goal has never been short-term fixes, but sustainable success built on structure and identity. That philosophy is part of why the previous era lasted so long, and it will likely influence the next decision just as strongly. Choosing the next head coach is not only about scheme or play calling, it is about leadership, vision, and the ability to see the entire operation as one interconnected system. Roster construction, game management, staff coordination, and situational decision-making all fall under that responsibility. The Ravens cannot afford a learning curve that cost them seasons, while their championship window remains open. That is why the debate between defensive-minded leadership and an offensive-driven approach has intensified. Bringing in a young offensive architect carries obvious appeal, especially with a dynamic quarterback who could thrive in a more explosive, creative system. The promise of better balance between the run and pass, deeper shots downfield, and smarter use of personnel is exciting. At the same time, being an elite coordinator does not automatically translate into being a commanding head coach. Leading a team requires presence. It requires the ability to walk into a room and set the tone, to manage pressure moments on the sideline, and to make critical decisions that can define a season. The question is not whether a young offensive mind can design plays, but whether he can lead men, manage egos, and handle the weight of expectations in one of the league's most competitive divisions. That evaluation will be central to every interview and conversation moving forward. For now, the Ravens are standing at a crossroads shaped by respect for the past and urgency for the future. The foundation is strong, the talent is real, and the expectations could not be clearer. What comes next will define not just the next season, but potentially the next decade of football in Baltimore as the search continues. The conversation inside the building is far deeper than simply choosing a name. That sounds exciting to the fan base. Every candidate represents a different philosophy, a different way of approaching the game, and a different vision for how this roster should be maximized right now. The Ravens are not starting from scratch, and that reality changes everything. Whoever steps into this role will inherit expectations that are immediate and non-negotiable. Because this team is built to compete at the highest level without delay. One of the most important factors in this process is understanding that a head coach is not hired in isolation. When a head coach is dismissed, the entire structure beneath him shifts as well. Coordinators, assistants, and position coaches are almost always replaced, which means the next leader is effectively building a new staff from day one. That reality brings both opportunity and risk. A new voice can unlock fresh ideas and energy, but it can also disrupt continuity if the pieces do not align correctly. If the Ravens choose a defensive-minded head coach, the expectation would be that he sets the tone physically and mentally, while surrounding himself with a forward-thinking offensive staff. In that scenario, the offense would likely be placed in the hands of a creative coordinator, capable of evolving the system around the quarterback's strengths. That balance could allow the head coach to focus on game management, situational football, and leadership, while trusting the offense to grow without constant interference. On the other hand, hiring a young offensive mind as the head coach would signal a clear shift in identity. That approach would place the quarterback and the offense at the center of everything, with the system designed to create explosive plays more consistently. It would also demand that the defensive side of the ball be guided by a seasoned coordinator who can maintain discipline and physicality. That structure can work, but only if the head coach possesses the authority and presence to manage all three phases of the game. The challenge with offensive innovators is not creativity, but command. Drawing up plays is one skill, leading an entire locker room is another. The Ravens compete in a division where physicality, mental toughness, and emotional control are tested weekly. Facing rivals that thrive on intimidation and pressure requires a leader who can match that intensity without losing composure. The head coach must be able to set the emotional temperature of the team in moments when games swing on a single decision. There is also the question of long-term vision versus immediate payoff. Ownership is not looking for a temporary solution or a short experiment. The ideal candidate is someone who can grow with the organization, adapt as the league evolves, and remain effective over many seasons. That means understanding roster cycles, managing salary cap challenges, and developing young talent while still competing for championships. It is a rare combination, and finding it requires patience and precision. Another layer to this decision is accountability. The Ravens have always valued internal responsibility, where players and coaches are held to a standard without unnecessary drama. The next head coach must reinforce that culture while also being willing to challenge it when necessary. Complacency cannot exist on a team with championship aspiration, especially after years of coming close without finishing the job. The quarterback remains at the center of everything. His prime years demand an environment that supports growth, consistency, and confidence in the biggest moments. Whether the next head coach is defensive or offensive in nature, his relationship with the quarterback will define the success of the entire era. Communication, trust, and shared vision will matter just as much as scheme or play design. As interviews continue and names circulate, it is clear that the Ravens are casting a wide net. They are exploring different backgrounds, experiences, and leadership styles, not to create confusion, but to ensure they leave no option unexplored. This is the most important hire the franchise has made in nearly 2 decades, and every detail matters. There is an understanding that risk cannot be completely eliminated. Any change at this level carries uncertainty. However, staying the same carried its own risk, one that became impossible to ignore. The decision to move forward was rooted in the belief that the ceiling could be higher, that the potential of this roster has not yet been fully realized. What remains now is patience and clarity. The next head coach will not only be tasked with winning games, but with shaping the next identity of Ravens football. The balance between tradition and innovation will define that identity. and the choice made in this process will echo throughout the organization for years to come. The atmosphere around the organization reflects both anticipation and pressure, because everyone understands that this decision will immediately reshape daily operations. From training camp tone to in-game adjustments, the influence of the next head coach will be felt quickly. Players will notice it in practice, intensity, in how mistakes are addressed, and in how confidence is built after setbacks. Those subtle elements often separate teams that survive adversity from teams that collapse under it. There is also the reality of expectations outside the building. Fans have grown accustomed to competitiveness and consistency, but patience has worn thin when January arrives. The Ravens are no longer judged by division, titles, or strong regular season stretches alone. They are measured by postseason execution, composure in tight moments, and the ability to close games against elite opponents. The next head coach will inherit that standard from day one, with no grace period attached. Internally, collaboration will be critical. The relationship between the head coach and the front office must be aligned, especially when it comes to roster construction and long-term planning, draft philosophy, free agency priorities, and player development strategies all stem from that partnership. When those voices are unified, decisions feel intentional rather than reactive, and the organization moves with purpose instead of hesitation. Another factor that cannot be ignored is adaptability. The league evolves quickly, and systems that dominate today can feel outdated tomorrow. The Ravens need a leader who is not rigid in his beliefs, someone willing to adjust philosophies based on personnel and trends without losing the team's core identity. Flexibility paired with conviction is rare, but it is essential for sustained success. As the process unfolds, one thing remains clear. This moment is not about erasing the past, but about building on it with urgency and clarity. The foundation has been laid over years of discipline and competitiveness. Now the challenge is finding the right voice to elevate that foundation into something that consistently delivers when the stakes are highest. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. The AFC North is buzzing with disbelief after a stunning rumor began circulating through league circles. MYLES Garrett, long considered the immovable pillar of Cleveland's defense, is said to have put pen to paper with the Baltimore Ravens. The story, first echoed by ESPN insiders and quickly amplified by rival executives, has ignited accusations of betrayal and sparked one of the most dramatic what-if scenarios the division has seen in years. According to those close to the situation, the move was carried out with extreme discretion, fueling the sense that something seismic was unfolding behind closed doors. Garrett, a perennial Defensive Player of the Year contender, has been synonymous with Cleveland's identity, and the idea of him lining up in purple feels almost surreal. Yet sources insist the Ravens front office quietly positioned itself for a bold strike, believing Garrett could be the final piece to an already fearsome unit. Speculation centers on Baltimore's aggressive philosophy and its willingness to challenge divisional norms. By prying away a generational talent from a direct rival, the Ravens would be sending a message that reverberates far beyond the locker room. Around the league, scouts are already debating how opposing offenses would adjust if Garrett were unleashed alongside Baltimore's established stars, potentially redefining the balance of power in the North. Cleveland, meanwhile, is left grappling with shock and anger, with whispers of a fractured relationship and last-minute negotiations that failed to bridge the gap. Fans are divided between disbelief and outrage, while analysts wonder whether this could mark a new era of ruthless intra-division maneuvering. For now, the league waits as the rumor continues to gather momentum. Whether this proves to be a masterstroke or merely the boldest speculation of the season, one thing is certain: the mere possibility of MYLES Garrett wearing Ravens colors has already altered conversations across the NFL, reminding everyone that in football, loyalty can be as fragile as it is powerful. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.